Okay, welcome everybody to the Youth Justice Action webinar series hosted by the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, OYCR. Today's webinar will highlight the Juvenile Probation Transformation Training courses on online an online learning series published by the Annie E. Casey Foundation. We have a few announcements before we get started today. Today's webinar will be recorded and posted on the OYCR webinar page. Slides will also be sent in a follow-up email. Please keep yourself muted throughout today's presentation. We welcome you to share your questions in the chat. There will be designated times to address questions. We will respond to as many as possible. Today's session has been approved for 1 hour of STC credit and 1 hour of BBS learning credit. To receive credit for attending, you must stay for the duration of the webinar. Educators are encouraged to attend in support of the professional's learning expectations outlined in the California Standards for the Teaching Profession, CSTP Standard 6, Developing as a Professional Educator. Consult your local district leadership to confirm whether participation is approved for professional learning credit. This webinar is not eligible for MCLE credits. Attendance can only be recorded if you register and join using your own unique Zoom link. If you join using someone else's link, your attendance will not be documented. If you have joined using someone else's link, you can copy the link in chat, log out, register, and rejoin using the unique link sent to you by email. Now, I would like to introduce you to our lead speaker for today, Ani Salish. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. I really feel like I butchered that.
Don't worry about it.
Ani Salsik?
Salsic.
Okay, sorry. I apologize.
That's
Uh,
okay.
Annie Salsic is a consultant to both the Annie E. Casey Foundation and to OYCR through the Just Solve. She led the development of online probation transform series course we'll be exploring today. Annie provides technical assistance to jurisdictions across the country committed to transforming juvenile probation and reducing reliance on young incarceration to improve outcomes for young people and families. Annie has spent over 2 decades working in youth justice and youth well-being, starting with direct service roles working alongside young people before moving into policy and system reform. I'll turn it over to Annie to get us started with today's presentation.
Thank you, Victoria. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm really excited to talk about the probation transformation training series from the Annie E. Casey Foundation. And I promise it's not just because I was lucky enough to be on the team of folks who put together the series. But it's because I genuinely think the courses provide a thoughtful and engaging way to learn about what system transformation is, why it's important, and what it looks like on the ground. And really, most importantly for me, I'm excited to talk about the courses because they are designed to not just be received passively, but they are designed to help learners actively explore the content so that they can reflect on their own local processes and to work together to plan, tailor, and implement reforms that make the most sense for them. I want to stress up front before, and hopefully you don't hear any background noise. Can you give me a thumbs up if the sound's okay?
We can
Okay.
still hear you clearly.
Okay. I want to stress up front that while this series is titled around juvenile probation transformation, it is not solely and exclusively about probation. The courses really are designed to get into broader system-wide transformation, and we'll get into that a little bit more. All right, so roadmap for today's session. I am going to briefly provide an overview of the training series, and then I will be very happy to introduce and turn it to Olivia and Ramon. They are both from Riverside. You're going to hear from them talk about how they and their colleagues have really creatively and actively used the courses in a way that makes the most sense for them in their backyard in Riverside. The way that they've done that is inspiring, and you're going to get to hear from that. I'll then turn it to Tara, who's going to give you a little dip of a toe or a foot into the courses and let you see what some of the activities look like. And we'll give real concrete instructions for how to access the training series and how to earn credit. All right, first we're going to hear from you for a moment. We would love, there's no pressure to answer this question in a certain way. We're assuming you're here because you are not very familiar with the training series. So answer truthfully. We just want to hear how familiar you are with the probation training series. You should see the poll pop up for you right now. Click on that when you have a second, and then don't forget to hit submit so we can gauge the answers. It just helps me tailor a little bit how I go into these based on familiarity.
And the responses are coming in fast. We've got more than half. We'll give people just a few more seconds and then share where we are. All right. Looks like the responses have slowed down, so I'll go ahead and share here, Annie.
This makes a lot of sense. This is what we would assume. So you're here because you're not very familiar, first time hearing, somewhat familiar, and that's actually very reassuring for us because we're going to give you some very basic information. If you were very familiar, then this would not be news to you. Okay, excellent. And yes, Scott, I just want to shout out in our private chat. I'm going to call out. I want to stress now, but I will do this later too. These are completely free to anyone, and Tara is going to give instructions about how anyone can access them. There's no cost, there's no challenge, and they're also, I'm going to say more about this, you can use them however you want. I will stress that more later. But first I want to give a little context for the courses. So, and actually if you can go back one, Tara, before we get to that. So why did Casey set out to create and offer to the field this particular training series? So a great deal of attention in the juvenile justice reform field over the last 20 plus years has, for very good reason, been focused on juvenile incarceration. What hasn't until the last several years really received as much national attention is juvenile probation. We know from practice and research that the wide majority of young people who go through the juvenile court system and receive a formal disposition or sentence are placed on juvenile probation supervision. What happens during that time on supervision has huge repercussions. If a young person is deemed to be unsuccessful on probation, they can and are likely to go deeper into the system, into detention, into out-of-home placement, into longer-term secure confinement. Given juvenile probation's significant footprint, the courses provide an important opportunity to take a close look at how probation has typically operated across the country, highlight research-based strategies for transforming that approach, illustrate the ways in which probation transformation efforts improve outcomes for young people, families, and communities, and elevate how this is part of a deeper system-wide transformation. And finally, how probation can't do it on their own. They can't do it alone, right? So this is truly about everyone locking arms to think about how to do this differently. So for some context, this is a wild oversimplification. I'm going to do one slide on the sort of transformation goals. The courses obviously get into much more detail, but to provide at least a foundation for when I show you the outline of the different course titles. Some of the core goals here are, and I'm actually going to start from the bottom of the slide. This visual comes straight from the courses and from the Casey Foundation. One of the goals is to raise the floor of juvenile probation by expanding access to community-led diversion. So ensuring that young people who don't need to go through the formal justice system and be placed on juvenile probation with a probation officer, that those young people are instead diverted to community-led, community-designed diversion opportunities where research shows they will have better outcomes. Similarly, though, this is about raising the ceiling of probation by trusting probation to work with more of the kids who, but for the existence of this, are being placed out of home in secure confinement. So trusting probation to truly act as an alternative to out-of-home placement and confinement, with the understanding that the only way probation can really do that and do that work well is in deep partnership with community, with the directly impacted communities, with the young people, the families, the grassroots organizations, the CBOs that know and have credibility with these young people. So that is a key part of it, is deep community partnership from the system. So that's very high level, but now I'm going to show you just the outline of the different courses that are available in the series. So the series itself is made up of 7 free online training courses. They're listed here in order in which they are presented. They are designed to build off of one another. That said, they can survive and exist on their own independently just fine. So if people want to just drop in to, say, course 3 on the adolescent brain and youth development without having done earlier courses, that's fine. They are designed to exist independently, but the ideal way is to go through the whole series. So we have an introduction to probation transformation, an introduction to racial equity, and then another part of that, racial equity and community partnership. I already mentioned course 3. Course 4, youth partnership and positive youth development. Course 5 is all about family partnership. That one was designed in very close collaboration with Justice for Families, a national organization led by directly impacted families. Course 6, Introduction to Trauma, and Course 7, all about organizational change. Content across all courses is grounded in research and is very much aligned with California system transformation goals and broader field priorities. The courses are each designed with adult learning in mind. I want to give a shout out to Tara, who really brought that adult learning lens to the design of these. They are interactive, they are engaging, they are not just 20-page reports called courses. You have hands-on activities. You'll have things where you'll have to click on answers to kind of activate your brain. Learners hear different voices. They hear the voices in audio and video and in written form from young people who've been through the system, from family members, from community organizers, from probation officers, probation supervisors, probation leaders, researchers, advocates, judges, all sorts of stakeholders. And they hear probation officers talk about why this work has mattered to them and why it has allowed them to do the work that they wanted to do initially, right? To kind of liberate them to be able to work with young people and families in the way that brought them to the position. The courses can be completed online, individually as self-paced learning, or collaboratively as a group. Again, you'll hear how Riverside approached this. And every single course has an accompanied discussion guide and interactive activities that people can use. Specifically, the interactive activities are meant for facilitators who might want to, say, have their staff or their colleagues go through a certain course and then have a brown bag lunch. Those interactive activities offer real live facilitation prompts, instructions for how to keep the conversation going. The amount of time it takes to complete each course ranges from about 90 minutes to 2 hours, but really it is dependent on the individual learner. And again, free, totally free. Next slide, Tara. So each course, we're really excited to announce that each online course is approved by BSCC in California for 1.5 hours of STC credit for probation professionals. That is something Casey worked hard on with partners within California, and we're really excited to announce that. In addition, each online course is approved by APPA, the American Probation and Parole Association, for 1.5 contact hours for probation professionals. So who are the courses for? The courses were designed primarily with probation and leaders in mind. But we want to stress, and really, it's primarily for probation leaders and practitioners because of the depth of the content. They go pretty deep into probation practices and the nooks and crannies and how to think about that differently. However, they are designed for anyone interested, I would say, not just in probation transformation, but system transformation across the board. So you're going to hear Ramon talk about how Riverside has used this with community partners. Olivia and Ramon are going to talk about that with community-based organizations. There are many jurisdictions. We have about more than 3,000 registered users for the courses right now. Many of those across the country are also judges, attorneys, young people, advocates. So it runs the gamut. Why use the courses? This is hopefully fairly self-explanatory at this point, but I want to say a little bit more. It's not just to learn, and I want to stress that again. It's to learn, reflect on, and apply strategies that transform the practices, policies, and culture of juvenile probation and the system at large. So there are prompts throughout the courses where learners are asked to reflect on their current process, where learners are asked, what is one thing you would want to change in your local jurisdiction? What is one thing you yourself can do differently? So they're meant to be very active. Overall purpose is better and more equitable outcomes for youth, families, and communities. Finally, for me, before I turn it over to Olivia and Ramon, is I want to give some examples of how the courses can be used, but I want to stress up front that they can be used any way you want. So Casey has been really wonderful about being explicit about this. There are no proprietary, the courses are all Casey courses, but you're going to hear Riverside talk about how they plucked out what they wanted to take from the courses for their people. People are encouraged to curate them, to figure out what will resonate most for their colleagues and for their locality. And just be creative with how you do it. Do it in a group all together, do it live, ask people to do it independently, and then come together and have conversations. So they can be used to support systemic change. If jurisdictions wanted to use the entire series, go 1 through 7 and have discussions and really have that a jumping off point for planning and implementation of what makes most sense for them. They can be used to shift practice in a particular focus area if you want to dive into one course. And if there's someone in a jurisdiction or a county, it's like maybe my county's not ready to take these on, but I want to do them. You can just do them independently on your own. All right, so I'm happy to turn it to Olivia and Ramon. So this is the part where you get to hear one example of what people are doing with this. People across the country are using them in lots of different ways, but I have to say, Riverside County, I have found in many ways the most inspiring example of just how creative Riverside has been in taking these on and making them their own. So I'm going to turn it to Olivia and Ramon. Olivia is the division director for Riverside County Probation, and Ramon Ramos is the president of The Exception, a local CBO. I'm going to let them say more about themselves for the introduction, but I just want to give the space to them. So Olivia, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Annie. Good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited to be here with you all this afternoon to share a little bit about how we have used the training and how we have really gone through this initiative of probation transformation in Riverside County. I am Division Director Olivia Cerna. I have been with the Riverside County Probation Department for 24 years. And so I've been around a lot for all the changes that we've seen in California for the past couple of decades. And also here today is my community partner, Ramon Ramos, and he'll introduce himself in just a bit. But long story long, I just love the work that we do in probation. I'm dedicated and always have been to the mission statement of our department, and particularly serving others and changing lives. So just excited to be here with you all and share. Ramon, next slide. So I'll start talking about when we started this in Riverside County was in June of 2024. So we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary. We were one of the 5 jurisdictions nationally that were selected to go to Georgetown University and receive the certification program. So it's very in-depth, what Annie just reviewed. That was a week-long certification course where we had our assistant chief, chief deputy, a division director, our business process analyst, a probation officer, our presiding judge, district attorney, public defender. We had a youth advocate that was in our secure track program at the time. And then of course, our community representative was Ramon. So I say that because you hear that I didn't mention myself. I did not go to Georgetown University. So I am somebody that was self-taught with the courses, in addition to what was shared with me from all the folks that did have the opportunity to go to Georgetown. So I say that just to say that, not a lot of folks get to go to the certification program, but it is very possible to still move forward with the work coming out of the goals of transforming juvenile probation, even if you didn't. So next slide, Ramon. And just like any initiative, as you start going through the materials, you want to make sure that it is aligning to any strategic objectives or initiatives you have within your own department. That just really makes it easier for the masses to understand the why behind it. This is a picture of our 5-year strategic plan, and this is aligned specifically to our objective 2, innovation, and our goal 2C, collaboration. Next slide. And here we have our mission statement, which everybody probably has a similar mission statement, but serving the courts. We have protecting our community, and the one that I love, changing lives. So certainly this aligns to our mission statement. Next slide. And as they mentioned, this training is free. So we don't get a lot of opportunity, in our departments or in anything we do in life, especially with inflation, to get any service that is free. But this is completely free, which is very great. And Annie touched on this, but I just wanted to say that you can make it your own. I had a little bit of hesitation on how I was going to move forward with this when I was assigned as the Transforming Juvenile Probation Coordinator in the department, because I was looking at all the goals. I had gone through all of the materials, and I was thinking at the time, okay, I have to do A, B, and C. But every jurisdiction has their own resources, their own capacity, their own ability. Sometimes we have more resources, sometimes we have less. And so I say that all to say, do what works for you. As they mentioned, take from the materials what your resources capacity allow for, and that's perfectly okay. Next slide. And so here, and you can just go through all the pictures, Ramon here. This is just an example of, if I gave you a deck of cards, which is this training, and said, build a tower, a card tower, it might turn out looking like either or any of these 3, because we are all unique and we are all going to build our towers in different ways because we have different skill sets, different resources. So build your tower in the way that works for you. Next slide. So our tower, we selected an instructor that happened to be me after I had gone through all of the materials. And I really spent some time thinking about how is this going to work for Riverside County. I knew that I could have the staff go through all of the trainings online, just like I did. But what we landed on is I wanted to make sure that it was a little bit more interactive so that we can answer questions, that may come up, because this was a big initiative that we were undertaking in Riverside County. So we actually consolidated the materials into an 8-hour in-person course that we did STC certify. And we use the discussion guides that are available in the training materials to drive those conversations in breakout groups to make it more interactive. Next slide. But we knew that we also needed a sustainability plan because like some of the jurisdictions in here, we have staff that transfer in and out. So what we did is we had the training unit add these courses to our training system. And that allowed us to flag this course as mandatory anytime a staff transferred into a juvenile position. And when that happened, it would become mandatory in their profile. Our training staff sends them out the instructions on how to access the site and complete the training. And at that time, they were returning the certificates to the training unit to obtain credit. And Annie E. Casey has made that even more simplified for us because they have certified it on their own to give 1.5 hours of STC credit for any course. And then, yes, the staff would get the credit at that point. So great way for us to get a lot of training hours. Most sworn staff are required to complete 40, so that's very, very helpful. But we also relied on our culture and the experience that we had in our department to have those more in-depth conversations with the staff that we're transferring in, so that we can talk about, what this is, what this meant for us, what our goals are. So we're starting to see some real culture shift, and it's very exciting. Next slide. And we also knew that collaborating with our community partners was going to be so crucial in this process. And as Annie mentioned, one of the goals is of transforming juvenile probation is to make sure that all of the work that we're doing is grounded in community partnerships. And so we wanted to open up these courses and dialogue with not just our community partners, but also our other justice system partners. So we picked out the courses that we thought were most relevant, and we conducted 3 2-hour sessions with our partners over the course of 3 months. So that was Ramon, myself, and the deputy probation officer that had gone to Georgetown that did that. And that did a lot for us. It really helped the community and our partners. And shout out to the partners that are here. I saw a couple of you in here that attended those trainings or are also collaborating with us on some of our initiatives. So thank you for being here. But it really opened the door for understanding what it is that probation is doing, right? We're not keeping any secrets here because we need everyone, as they mentioned. It created that transparency between county and community, helped us build trust, share knowledge. It helped foster new ideas and seek input from different perspectives because we all bring something unique and different to the table. And then it allowed us to answer any questions that anybody had on what we were doing. Next slide. So I have here lessons learned, wisdom earned. So of course, hindsight's 2020, right? And there's always things that we can learn from what we do. And it was just myself and the other probation officer in these trainings with the community and the partner. And if I had to do it again, I would have invited more probation staff. I think I was thinking at the time, okay, they've already taken these courses. We know how we feel bogged down with ancillary duties, but I'll tell you, the perspective and wisdom that I learned from our community partners and the other justice partners was invaluable. And I wish that could have been shared with more of the probation staff. So just something to consider. Next slide. And just talking about some of the things that we're doing here in Riverside County. So we know that child family team meetings are already required for our foster care youth. We just finished a rapid improvement event to look at family engaged case planning, and we're excited to announce that it was one of the first events where we invited community partners into our event, into our home, and they were active participants in us looking at our processes, protocols, and providing input. And it was wonderful. But we are looking now, they've provided recommendations to expand child family team meetings to other areas of probation or youth that are on community supervision. And our target state, our goal is to expand it to all forms of probation. Next slide. And we are also excited to announce that we launched our community-led diversion on April 1st. Goal number 1 of TJP is to divert as many youth away from the justice system as possible. So we have been successful with partnering with a community-based organization that was done through a request for proposal. And we are now sending all of our non-mandatory referrals that come in from law enforcement to that community-led diversion program. And so we're evaluating in these early stages. And once we get to our target state, we will be having discussions with our district attorney to discuss referring even mandatory referrals to community-led diversion. So very exciting. Next slide. And another exciting program going on in Riverside County that we just launched on April 1st as well is collaboration between probation and CBOs. What we are doing is co-navigating to provide joint support to our youth. That's in the form of mentoring services from these CBOs. And we have focused on our pilot group, which is our youth coming out of our secure track and our detention treatment facility. So we are meeting with them prior to them reentering the community. And we also have youth in the pilot that are already at home on community supervision. We know this is a very high-risk population, and we selected them intentionally to provide more supports as they're transitioning from an in-custody setting back home to the same, communities and some of the challenges that they had before they went in. And what is the most important is we know that they're only with probation for a finite amount of time. And just talking about that, rooting it back into community, we want to make sure that we are setting up our youth for success once they're off probation and they have strong community connections to support their success. Next slide. And we're also just evaluating all areas of our probation. We're getting ready to start looking at our assessments, and then we're starting to look at supervision standards as well. And then we'll move into our violations and our orders and conditions. So lots of continued work. But that's how we have implemented some things in Riverside County. And to you all, I say, build your tower as a reminder. Do what works for you. You can use all of the materials Annie E. Casey provides. Some of it, it doesn't matter as long as we're all moving forward with the goals in mind in TJP, where we're really shifting from that compliance to coaching and mentoring and transferring what we learned to these new generations. So with that said, I'll turn it over to my community partner, Ramon.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you all for being here, and great job, Olivia. And I also wanted to thank Director Lucero and Tara and Scott, who has played an amazing role actually in our whole transformation. And I got to meet him in Georgetown for the first time, and so he's been kind of like an angel on my shoulder, helping guide me through some of the tough stuff. And so I appreciate all of you. And when you talk about what happened in Riverside and what's happening in Riverside, you're talking about culture shift, you're talking about systems change, and that's not easy. And it doesn't happen overnight. We have seen some tremendous growth in the last 2 to 3 years, which is probably not common, but we're hoping that some of the stuff that I'm going to share and Olivia shared would inspire some that are in this work and say, is it possible? Because sometimes it feels like changing systems just seems like crazy because of generations of doing things the same way, and people that are stuck in systems and don't know how to move it. So with that said, for me, the journey started actually a little bit before Georgetown. We were in the beginning of 2024, and it started, and I see it in here, I believe Joelle Moore, who's in this picture, and she's actually a tremendous partner and colleague as well, from the Public Defender's Office. But this is some of the original people that formed the ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee was so important. I got lucky enough to come to these meetings, these JJCC meetings, at a time when there was a new chief in town, and Chief Wright had taken office, and he was in a place where he felt like he was willing to do things differently. He was willing to kind of challenge the status quo. And one of the things that he did was say, hey, let's form an ad hoc committee made up of county partners and community partners so that we could sit together and start to create strategies and really evaluate what's going on with our young people and how do we come up with solutions. Somehow I ended up getting appointed to chair that committee. And, one of the things that I told the team right away, like, if we're going to be here, we're going to get something done. I could not waste time. And so we really started looking at what programs were being offered, where were the gaps in services, what was not being offered, and then how were we evaluating those programs, right? And then on top of that, there was $20 million that had accumulated and a contingency fund, and now that's 30, right? That's actually moving out to the community because we got to work and created a plan. And so, we created this 3-year strategic plan, action plan, where our focus was on total wellness, right? I know that, and I'm a big believer that hurt people, and healed people heal people. And I know that because I myself am system impacted and justice involved. I myself, grew up with a lot of trauma. And so a lot of the things that I went through was due to that trauma and a lack of healing, a lack of resources. And I always tell people I didn't need a cell. I didn't need, I didn't need fear, someone to put fear in me. You could not have done that to change my life. I needed love. I needed a hug. I needed someone to believe in me. I needed a mentor. Those were the things that really made the difference in my life. And so when we were looking at how are we going to really shift what's going on with our youth, we went back to wellness. Like if they can become healed, if they can be well, if they can be whole, and their families can be well, then we're going to see a shift in community. During that time, we got the call and the opportunity to go to Georgetown University with. And I also want to thank Annie and Annie E. Casey Foundation for the amazing curriculum they put together. And more than that, just this whole event, this whole week where they immersed us in this transformation. And because it was not just community and it wasn't just probation. I mean, you had Joelle Moore was there on that team as well. She's here, public defender. You had the DA, you had the judge. And the Casey Foundation challenged us to have tough conversations. What does transformation look like? What is it going to mean for the youth? What is it going to mean for probation department to do things differently? What is it going to mean to trust credible messengers, to go into facilities and to mentor and to get some of these funds that are available for their programming? What does that really look like? And we had those tough conversations, and there was some really cool stuff that I learned there in Georgetown that kind of was aha moments for me. One of them was I learned about this guy, John Augustus, right? The founder of Probation, and how really he was just an entrepreneur turned philanthropist. I mean, he was a bootmaker, and he seen that these people were being put in jail for some small crimes and misdemeanors and taken from their families. And so he started going to court and saying, hey, judge, listen, let me take this person to my home. Let me take them and teach them how to work, teach them a trade, give them some life skills. I'll bring them back in 3 to 6 months. If they've done well, then you'll release them from their charges. That is how probation started. And when I heard that, I'm like, wow, they were like the first CBO. Like John Augustus was literally just based in community, rooted in community and healing, in restoration. And so I started learning too there how we wanted probation officers to move away from just compliance officers and referees and become more like coaches. Referees are there just to kind of call you when you do something wrong. They're looking for a way to penalize you. That's their job, pull you back, make it tougher for you to get down to your destination. But when you have a coach, you have somebody that believes in you, that wants the best for you, that's trying to help you find resources to win. And when I heard all that, I said, you know what, I could work with this type of probation. I know when I was on probation, it was nothing like that. I was scared. I would start sweating just when I first started getting around the POs. I'm like, oh man, it was a culture shift, right? And so, one of my mentors always taught me, and I'll try and go fast, 'cause I don't want to go over time, but one of my mentors always taught me, like, don't just be a thermometer, be a thermostat. Don't just walk in the room and go set at the temperature of everyone else, but change the temperature. Start to control what's going on in the room. Start to be a real change maker and an innovator and somebody that stands up when other people are sitting down. And so that's what we started doing. And part of coming home from Georgetown, Elisa, Chief Deputy Elisa, and myself and Assistant Chief Natalie were flying back together, and we're talking, how do we get our colleagues at home to understand what we just went through? How do we get our CBOs at home? How do we get the county agencies at home to kind of have this experience and see things and buy into what we're selling? And along the way, I had started something called the CBO Alliance. One of the things that happened when I started with the ad hoc was I realized that there was not a place that CBOs were really gathering and collaborating, and a lot of competition was going on. It was like crabs in the bucket, pulling each other down and hiding secrets from each other, fighting over clients and over contracts. And I said, I think that it would be easier for all of us if we work together. And not only that, I think that the community is going to be healthier for it. And so I started, talking to CBOs about joining forces, and some agreed and some didn't, right? And we just kept going. We kept going. We kept building, bringing training, bringing capacity building. Before you know it, there were hundreds of people gathering together at our town halls. And these are leaders that were from all over different parts of the county: DPSS, RCO, the Office of Education, obviously probation was with us, public defenders, DAs, everybody coming to the table to discuss systems change, to talk about what were the barriers in our county, how could we really address these challenges. And today the CBO Alliance is continuing to expand and grow. I've seen young visionaries here, Dr. Terrence Stone on the call also. He's one of the committee members there in San Bernardino, where we just expanded, San Diego as well. And so here you see Olivia and I, we got to work, and I'm going to go quick because I want to end with this. But we started bringing the community together with the county, and it was a lot of fun. But in the end of the day, what we wanted to do was show the community, what does it look like when county partners and community come together and show how we can bring education and resources to those that are most vulnerable and most in need. And so we call this event called Raising the Future. And it was an event where we had at this one 16 workshops. We had 2 keynote speakers. We gave away $10,000 in scholarships and prizes. There was over 500 people that attended. The colleges were involved, the school districts. The kids were winning PS5s and stuff for their school, and it was just amazing. And then lastly, Supervisor Perez on the other side of the county said, "No, I want that over here. Forget about it. I need you over here, and I'll help pitch in on it." And so we went over there, then to the 4th District, and the UCR jumped in, and College of the Desert, and other foundations. And so we did it again, and I'm going to leave you with this little short 40-second video as I close of what it looks like when community and county come together.
Today, Raising the Future reminded us all what hope looks like. From aspiring keynote speakers like Richard Montañez and Supervisor V. Manuel Perez, to the heartfelt stories shared by attendees, this event showed the power of community. Teens and adults alike gathered for meaningful breakout sessions, learning about kindness, art, financial literacy, and even content creation as a future career path. For many, it was more than just a day of workshops. It was a day of possibility, a chance to believe in themselves and in the future we're all building together.
And I just want to encourage you that are here today, don't stop. The need is there. The youth need us. This is about healthy youth, healthy families, healthy communities. I see some of you that are from the Alliance on here. I see Ernesto joined us from Kindful Restoration, and there's others. And we appreciate the partnership of every single one of you. This is not a work of 1 or 2 people. This is a lot of people involved in this work. And so we appreciate every single one of you. And thank you for your time, everybody. I'll turn it back to Annie.
Thank you, Ramon. Thank you, Olivia. By the way, I love the exploding hearts. My next Google is going to be how to create exploding hearts in Zoom. Great. So, exploding hearts to Olivia and Ramon. You both were wonderful. Thank you for your time. So, I'm going to turn it to Tara to again, like I was saying, dip our toes a little bit in a sample activity from a course, just to give a preview.
Thank you so much, Annie, and thank you, Olivia and Ramon. It is just such a treat to be able to hear how the partnership that you all have forged really helps to be able to deepen the probation transformation work and how you use the courses in that work. And so we're going to show you a little bit about those courses. Just really briefly, I have the pleasure of being able to show you what this looks like, what you can expect, and we hope that you will end your time today with us by registering if you are not already registered. Before we dive into this and give a very brief walkthrough, I encourage you to continue dropping any comments or questions in the chat that you have. We've got Olivia and Ramon with us through the end of the webinar, and they will engage with your questions in the chat as much as they can with the time that we have left. So just really quickly, this is a screenshot of what the learning dashboard looks like where the courses live. And it does require registration and an account, but it is worth it because all of your individual progress on the courses are stored in your unique account, and you can obtain course certificates that are all stored there, stop and start as you'd like. And so there's a lot of benefit to having your own account. So you can see all of the courses are listed there that Annie mentioned before on the dashboard. And I'm just going to do a very brief, less than 60 seconds walkthrough just to show you a sample of what one of the courses looks like. And then we'll dig into a little bit of an example. So you'll notice that on the course homepage, at every course homepage, there's a link to the companion notebook and discussion guide that Annie mentioned earlier. Both are PDFs that you can save, print. In the case of the companion guide, you can complete it digitally. Every course includes several lessons, and the lessons have varying content, including text, images, interactive media, just like the example you see here with the interactive infographic. All of it is designed to help you really engage with the content, grasp the concepts. You'll see another example here with a flip card activity, a nice, really simple way to absorb and connect with the learning. Your progress in the courses is tracked on the left as you move through each lesson, so you can stop and start. Your progress will be saved. To complete a course, you have to complete every lesson, including the knowledge check at the end, and then you'll receive a certificate, which you can download and save if you'd like. So that's just a very, very brief look at what it looks like inside the courses. And so now we want to give you all an opportunity just to jump in and try a sample course without having to register. We just pulled a snippet out, and Jackie's going to drop a link in the chat, and you can click on that link, or you can just follow along on my screen. I'll show also here in demo, you have a choice if you want to dive in yourself, you want to just follow on my screen. Just to respond to the question, so Kat, we've got a couple things for you. So we will send a couple things via email, but live in this session in just a couple minutes, we're going to share the registration link. And so you'll be able to get in as soon as today if you'd like, and then we'll send that in the follow-up email as well. But in the meantime, we'd love for you to get in now and take a look at this sample activity. This is from one of the courses that Annie mentioned before. This is from course 3, Adolescent Brain Development, which happens to be one of my favorites. The courses are not like children. We can have favorites, and so we do. And Adolescent Brain Development is one of my favorites for a number of reasons. But this particular course, when you click on the link, which you should all be able to access, you can just click on the arrow that clicks you down to the bottom, and you can just see this little snippet. This is one section of one lesson. A little more context beyond this, where this comes from, is that this also is in the lesson about emotional and psychosocial development from the course 3. And in this particular section of a lesson, the text highlights 2 big ideas. So I'm not going to ask you to read all the text that you see here in front of you, but I'll kind of give you a sense of what the big ideas are. Neither of which will be foreign to any of you. The first is that adolescents make better decisions in cold contexts or calm situations, whereas emotionally charged situations or hot contexts, decision making is driven more by emotion rather than logic. Secondly, the other big idea is that hot contexts are triggered by emotional cues like peer pressure or like past experiences or even trauma, which makes decision making difficult, to say the least, in those moments. And so those are the 2 big ideas. And then if you scroll down, you'll see there's a lot of text that describes those big ideas, along with a table that shows a breakdown of the characteristics of cold context contexts versus hot contexts. Again, a lot of these concepts are probably very familiar. You may not have used these labels for them, but that's what this lesson does. This portion of the lesson is introduce the difference between those contexts. And so you can scan that, but ultimately we'd love for you to scroll down to the bottom and see these little flip cards. This is an activity that exists within the system that allows you just to engage with the content and work out your own learning. So this is not a quiz or a test where the answers are sent anywhere. This is just for you. And so this part of the lesson is pretty representative of what exists in other lessons across the courses. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of these, but if you have it up on your own screen, go through at your own pace. What you're looking at here on each card, there is a hypothetical behavior of a youth listed. And the exercise asks that you read the behavior and then decide whether you think this behavior exists within a cold or a hot context. And you're just taking a guess and you're flipping around the card to see if you were right or not. So this first behavior is the youth pushes a teacher while trying to escape a verbal altercation with another student. So we'll just use the chat a little bit. And in the chat, just drop a word in. Do you think this is a cold or a hot context? Just take a guess. If you're right, great. If you're wrong, don't worry. I'm seeing in the chat, lots of people are saying hot context. And so we flip it over, it's a hot context. And this, just to give a little bit of explanation here, altercation with a peer creates a hot context. Actions will not be well thought out in that kind of situation. Not super surprising. Just one more we'll go through here. This particular behavior is the youth brainstorm several potential options for what to do over the weekend to stay out of trouble while having a one-on-one conversation with a trusted community mentor. What do you think in the chat there? Is this a cold context or a hot context? Yeah, I like the all caps cold. It definitely feels cold. Oh, Annie found the snowflakes. That's right. So this one, if we flip it over, we see it's a cold context. It's a comfortable conversation outside the presence of peers. It creates the best setting for youth to think rationally and problem solve as effectively as possible. So that's just an example. You can click on the other ones and kind of take a look at what's there. But just to give you an example of what some of these activities feel like, this is a relatively low demand activity that's in the system. And again, low stakes to be able to get a sense of these, the concepts that we're working through. So by guessing whether the behavior is a cold or hot context, you're actively applying the big ideas that I mentioned from the lesson. You're moving kind of from knowing the concepts to seeing them, using the terminology, and really being able to recognize them in real adolescent behavior. So for example, when you encounter these moments with youth, you can recognize whether a young person's operating from a sense of calm, logical place, or sort of an emotionally activated one. Wanted to give you just one other, just in case you're curious and you want to see another one. Same course. We're not going to dive into this one, but just give you a link if you want to see a totally different type of activity. You can save this link if you'd like. It's just another sample taken from the same course, Adolescent Brain Development. This sample is from the cognitive development lesson, and the header is one of my favorites, what is really going on inside the adolescent brain. So you'll see kind of an interactive way to be able to tap on different areas of the image and learn about different types of processing and cognitive development, and then walk through and apply those concepts in scenario-based type learning. So if you need a snippet to try or even to share with some of your colleagues that might not be here, that's another example that you might like to share. All right, so let's get you access to the way to actually register and get into the full courses. So just give you a heads up about what to expect here. It is very simple, but just to give you a sense of what to expect, just in case you have any trouble, in the chat, we will give you the registration link. And I'll tell you how what to expect when you go to register. So you can click on that link and actually do this now live while we're talking, because it is that simple. So when you get to the landing page for the courses, you'll see at the very bottom that link will take you right to the registration section of the page, and you'll enter basic information as you typically would for any registration. But then you're going to receive an automated email. So you want to make sure you use the email that you ultimately want to register for to receive access to the account. You'll receive an email at the account you use to register, and in that email will be an invitation to access your account. When you click that link, you'll be able to create a password, and then you'll be able to access the courses, and you'll get access to that dashboard that we showed in the very beginning. By the way, in addition to using the link in the chat, if you'd prefer, you can scan the QR code, it takes you to the same exact place. If you don't get an email, check your spam, and if you still don't get an email, you have trouble, you can contact us at the support email we We've got real people responding to these emails. If you have any trouble being able to get in, you can just contact us. I'll tell you the most frequent problem with access is typos in email addresses or using just the wrong email address to be able to register. So we encourage you to do that today. There's nothing to lose to register. You can at least get in and browse the courses. You won't lose access. There's no timeline. And so you can register today, do a course next week, do a course tomorrow, do a course next month, whatever you prefer to do. All right. And then as Annie mentioned, we are very, very excited that probation staff are able to receive credit for taking the courses. There's obviously value for everyone in taking the courses, but since they are STC approved now, you can receive credit for completing them. So for probation staff, in order to receive credit, first you have to complete the course. After that, everything else is pretty much taken care of, but I'll tell you how it works just so that if you run into issues, you'll know what to expect. You complete the course, and then we take your data on a monthly basis and share it with the training contacts in every county to be sure that you receive STC credit. What happens after we pass your information off will vary by county. They'll engage the process that whatever process your county uses for STC credit. But what we want you to know is that our reporting is done on a monthly basis. And so our data for course completers is pulled around the 5th of each month, sent to your county contacts within about 5 to 7 days. And so, for example, if you complete a course tomorrow on May 1st, that data won't be processed until early June, and you may not hear until later in June, and depending on your county processes. Again, you can contact us at that email I posted in the chat if you have questions about the timing of the completion of a course or anything about accessing or receiving credit. All right. That is all in terms of getting access to the courses and getting access to receive credit. And we do have a brief moment if there's any other questions that Annie, Olivia, or Ramon want to answer. I'm just watching to see if I see any others. If not, I will hand off. Just double checking. Anything else from you? Good to go? All right. I think we are good to hand off back to Mika. Again, just wanted to thank all of our speakers and thank you all for all of your attention today. And I will hand off to Mika to close us out.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I'm Mika. I'm part of the advisory board. I want to thank our presenters for that amazing presentation and loved everything you guys shared and really hoping that people utilize these trainings. We know how important a probation officer is to impact what experience a youth is able to get out of their experience. And so that can really make or break a lot. And I hope that everyone is able to do that. I want to thank everyone for joining today's session and thank the speakers for their presentation for today's webinar. We welcome you to take the survey to provide feedback on your experience in today's webinar. The link will be available in the chat. We have a couple of announcements to close out today's webinar. This is a reminder that the recording of this webinar will be available on the OYCR website by the end of this week, and the slides will be sent to you in a follow-up email. Please be sure to save the date for our 2026 California Youth Justice Summit, Heal the Past, Pave the Future, Watering the Seeds from Youth Voice to Vision. The summit is scheduled for October 5th to the 7th, 2026 at the San Diego Marriott La Jolla. And registration details are coming soon. The Youth Advisory Board is also partnering with the OYCR to organize that, so you will see a lot of our work in that and youth involvement. Also, mark your calendars for the next Youth Justice Action webinar, which will be Wednesday, May 20th at 10 a.m. We'll be joined by Clinton Lacey of the Credible Messenger Mentoring Movement, CM3, and other special guests to explore how credible messengers can transform outcomes for youth. And you can use the link in the chat to register. And that concludes today's webinar. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to the presenters. And we hope to see you next month. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon.